I have to take a quick.
Hey, oh, I gotta turn up my speaker.
Hi.
Hello, Kathleen. I can see you. Or
I'm here.
hi.
I'm, yeah, in the background.
Hope you don't mind. I'm gonna nibble. We had a late meeting last night, and I didn't get to dinner until 10:30 or 11.
Oh my goodness, ridiculous.
Well, it's the way of the world.
Right, right. I'll turn off my, I'll mute myself and listen.
Hi, Jim. Tamsin, Karen, Becky.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, Becky. How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you doing? Yeah. Busy
Really?
here.
It's always tough at the end of the fiscal year, and I'm sure you know what that's like. Yeah. So
Kimberly, do you want me screen sharing anything?
I think I have everything that we need, but thanks. And if we do need something, maybe you can grab it.
I just to be prepared, I'll make you both co-hosts.
Okay.
Okay. Then you can put stuff up, whatever.
Right. Should we wait a few more minutes, or should we get going?
Okay, Rita's here, April's here. We have the select board. I'm not sure. I was expecting the fire chief. Why don't I just call him quickly and then we'll start once we know his status.
Okay.
Oh, you're
April, you're on mute.
I know. I was noting that I haven't seen you guys for a while.
A few hours anyway.
You guys have endurance. Serious endurance.
That I'd have a few other choice words that I won't repeat publicly.
Oh, yes, I think I know.
Okay, so Walter is here and I'm just going to check in with the police chief, but I think, is anybody expecting anyone else that they would want to wait for? Walter?
Okay. So do you want me to get started, Becky?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. And I wanted to start off with asking if anyone had any questions or comments on sections 2 and 3. And if not, we can jump into the questions that we've compiled. Becky, it looks like I'm not able to share my screen.
Oh, it didn't work for you? I saw Tamsin's definitely did. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, there you go.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Now, of course, I had opened everything. Now you'll just see the chaos that's my, oh, here it is. So can people see that?
Not.
Yep.
I can,
You can actually increase it at the bottom, I think there. 50.
let's see. How's that?
Yeah.
Is that better? So these are the questions that we came up with for sections 2 and 3. So I'd just like to go through them quickly with you. And
I just want to time out for a second, and I did send these to Becky. So if
Okay, I will forward. I'm sorry, I didn't see
well
them.
after our last meeting, so I just wanted to make sure that you hadn't already worked on it. Sounds like not. Okay.
okay. So the first one is about beaver dams and if they are a concern in Shutesbury.
Yes, they definitely are.
And can you give us some locations because we can mark them on the map?
Okay,
Town Farm Road is one of them, right? Or off of that. At least when I was a kid, there was one there.
Can you say that again, Melissa?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was blocking my microphone. Town Farm Road.
Town Farm Road?
is there
Um,
a name for that pond there?
I don't know that information.
Do you
Yeah,
know?
I happen to live on Town Farm Road.
But there was one at the end we used to walk across as kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's still one there.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a name for that pond.
Yeah, it's called Beaver Pond.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks, Walter.
There's actually a new pond. There's a new beaver pond on the other side of the town farm now. too.
Yeah, unfortunately.
They're going upstream.
So when I show the maps in a few minutes, we can kind of pinpoint where these are. So it sounds like there are 2 on Town Farm Road.
There's one off Pelham Hill Road.
Okay.
All right.
It's quite large. There's a couple, I mean, we have beaver damming problems by Lake Wyola on the inlets to
Mhm.
Lake Wyola.
Okay.
There isn't one off the place that feeds the lake. I can't remember the name of that feeds the lake by what used to be Camp Anderson.
Yes, there is one.
That's the one we have ongoing issues with.
And there's an
We
old,
we removed the dam 3 times last year from there.
Oh my.
So where is that?
Is that Fisk Pond?
yeah,
Well, it's the inlet from Fisk Pond, the stream that comes down from Fisk Pond and McAvoy Pond Dam
yep.
into the north end of Lake Wyola.
Okay.
They usually build the dam right in the box culvert.
Oh, that's handy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's been dam building down on Cooleyville. Have you noticed that, Jim? That beyond where Susie lives and Phyllis? Where that bridge-
Yes,
the
you're
bridge-
right. There is some beaver pond dam activity down there. You're right.
Yep, there's one as you go down towards towards New Salem to the left, up in the back, more towards Jim's place. And then there's one right on the road and just past the road there that I think New Salem had to deal with last year because the water was actually coming over the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys do have a lot of beaver in Shutesbury.
Uh-huh.
Is it accurate to say, however, that the only one that really causes ongoing issues are the ones around Lake Wyola and Fisk Pond?
No, because we end up, we had to, well, it was New Salem this year. I think the year before, the highway department had to remove dams from there too, on the Shutesbury side. So
On Cooleyville Road.
that's off Cooleyville Road. Around the lake, every year we have some different issue. Town Farm Road, how frequent do you think they have problems there, Jim and Melissa?
Maybe every couple of years or so. I think, Tim and the team, they come in and take some action, or either that or the state or the environmental group comes in probably every couple of years.
Yeah, I don't have any modern reference for that, Becky. It was just
Okay. Just as a kid.
Well, yeah, and knowing that it was so well constructed, it wasn't easily going to be taken down.
Okay, and have they caused any problems with well contamination or problems other than creating a nuisance and flooding roads?
They
Blocking up
definitely flooded
culverts?
roads. I don't think we've had people report, I think like 30 years ago, there was a huge dam down by the old swimming area at Lake Wyola, and there was giardia in the water, and that was a real health problem, but that was all taken out.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay. Great. So the next thing is table 2-3, which is a table of the cultural resources that were listed in the 2015 plan. And so we just wanted you to take a look at this and make sure that it was still accurate. If we needed to add anything. Also, this column here, even though it doesn't have a header, I lost it when I guess it got copied, is if there are any important things to list, like the Historical Commission, we have archives and artifacts.
The only thing I don't see on there is the West Schoolhouse.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know the address of that?
Give me just a minute.
Isn't that 3 West Pelham Road? It says Historical Commission, but isn't that the West Street Schoolhouse?
Yeah, it's a historical commission owns it.
Oh, so
Maybe
maybe we should,
it's misnamed.
misnamed, okay. Yep.
Yeah. And the carriage house at the cemeteries, I'm not seeing that.
That's the second
Oh,
one.
yeah, yes, I see that now, yes. Get pretty close. What else?
But
I think we
it
called it
doesn't,
the Hearst House,
That's right.
the Hearst House, the Hearst, right,
as in Hearst, yeah.
right. Hearst
Yeah.
House.
The old school, the West Schoolhouse is 3 West Pelham Road.
Right,
Okay.
it says Historical Commission, should say West Schoolhouse.
But
Oh, yeah, there, yeah.
Okay.
okay, so it is there.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
Mm-mm.
Well, everything else is state or a private, I think.
Okay.
Should we include, there's a new gazebo down by the state beach that's on town property. I mean, down by the town beach. You don't put gazebos on there, or do you?
Well, this is really, it's really cultural and historic resources. But if this is a recreation resource that you're talking about that sounds important to the community, we could mention it.
I think as historic resources, we have like an old tomb
Hmm,
from the cemetery. It's
okay.
has a big metal door.
Crypt.
Yeah.
So is that in the cemetery on Pratt Corner Road or in West?
No, it'd be on, it might, the second one down, you have Cemetery Commission Carriage House. That should say West Cemetery and Carriage House,
Okay.
158 Leverett Road, but the tomb.
I can't see anybody because I had to switch to a different screen to share. So if we're supposed to move along and I'm not moving along, just prompt me.
I just, my other question is the dam on there?
I don't see a dam.
Yeah, that we have a town-owned dam across Lake Wyola on Locks Pond Road.
Yeah. Built in the 1800s.
Oh, wow, okay. So a town-owned dam on Moss Pond Road, built in the 1800s.
And there's a well house on top of the
Okay.
Gatehouse.
gatehouse, sorry.
Okay,
And if you want, the official address for that is 393 Locks Pond Road.
Okay. Great. Any other additions? Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to number 3, which is we were asking about gravel roads in town that have drainage problems or and from the MVP plan, roads along Lake Wyola and Baker Road. Are there more?
Yes,
Yeah, does this, when you say gravel, does that mean like dirt roads?
Yeah,
Gravel?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cooleyville Road, Montague Road,
Sand Hill and
Sand Hill, and Pratt, that's right.
The Cooleyville, Montague, Sand Hill,
Pratt Corner.
Pratt Corner.
Wendell.
Now, are the roads problematic because they are like, they cross steep terrain? You know, are there particular?
Terrain has a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
And on Sand Hill Road, there's a vernal pool on, you know, in a wetland area very close to the road, and it's in a pocket. So the water doesn't flow away, and there's more.
Yeah, so when the roads become the canal for the water, it starts eroding the roads. So,
Mhm. Yep.
And there's also wetlands in various sections of Montague Road that help create some really phenomenal mud.
yeah. And then the area with the steep part,
Yep,
call it Task Hill Flume, whatever, there's many names for it.
Kellogg Hill.
Because of the steepness of that tends to
Oh,
have a lot of problems when heavy rain.
that's right.
And that's on Montague Road also?
Yes.
That's Montague Road, yep.
Yeah, it's over 3 miles long, I think.
Yep.
I couldn't hear that.
It's over 3 miles long, so there are a number of different problem areas.
Okay. All right. Becky, does the town have any compilation of the damages and costs, property losses, information like that from Hurricane Floyd or Tropical Storm Tammy or Irene?
I know I have a lot of the FEMA documents from Irene.
Would it be a lot of work to just give us a total amount of damage, losses, and costs related to Irene?
I will see how accessible the information is.
Yeah.
Total damages, and you want that for all 3, or do you have it for the earlier ones?
Well, we don't have it for the earlier ones for Shutesbury, but I don't want to make a lot of work for you. So if it's just something, even a ballpark number,
Okay,
that's fine. And if it's just going to be too much work, don't worry about it.
okay.
Were there any impacts from Hurricane Gloria in 1985?
Oh, wow.
Mm.
I'm gonna just say something quickly about this. There's no mention of Hurricane Gloria in your previous plan, and there's, I think, a statement that says no hurricane has ever like passed over Shutesbury, but in the FEMA hurricane database, it looks like Hurricane Gloria went directly over Shutesbury. And it could be inaccurate, but I was just trying to get some clarification.
So we could look at the annual reports from 1985 and see if we can spot anything there.
Oh, that's a great
Historically,
idea. Yeah. Okay. So Leverett talked, they have Brushy Mountain, which is the big Coles property, and there was a lot of discussion about, working and non-working forests, meaning forests that are actively managed versus forests that are just left alone. And so, and the context for that was wildfire risks. So we were just curious if Shutesbury had any concerns about, managed working forests versus ones that are left alone when it comes to wildfire risk.
Well, that's kind of a touchy subject in some ways, because we have tried to address that with different entities before. But when their plans, now a lot of times the forestry plans require in certain areas to have them leave a certain amount of slash and all that, which breaks down and puts nutrients back into the soil. That's part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
You're arguing against a managed, approved plan. The only thing that I've tried to address on that is leaving at least the access roads open enough that we can get brush trucks through. Yes, you can get a skidder through almost anything, but we don't drive skidders when it comes to fire suppression. So there is a concern on our part on that, and there are more areas of the forests that are being logged by different entities. The managed forest parts, we have access. We work with Coles to have keys to the gates, Coles and the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife have access to the gates that are there to allow us entry. But there's other areas that there are no gates, or there is not really good access. And, between the ice storms and the logging that's been going on, there is a fair amount of, fuel load on the ground. But if it's part of the plan, they're required to do it. So.
Yeah, that particular point. I haven't heard that one before, and that's really interesting. Like you said, it creates a conflict.
I really didn't understand why they left so much slash, because before they were required not to.
Right.
But I've gone to a few training sessions about forestry cutting plans and why they do what they do, and that's part of it. Is they're not everywhere, but in certain areas they were required to leave a certain amount of slash down. Whether anybody's checking it to see if they're putting too much or not, I don't know.
Oh, very interesting.
Walter, can you say again the name of the truck that you want to be able to get into the?
No, I say, well, when they're going through, they're using skidders.
Yeah.
Logging skidders, which would go through almost anything.
Yeah, and what do you guys drive?
Those. We drive regular brush trucks, regular.
Okay.
So.
The number 7, the next question is, are there any invasives that you're particularly concerned about as causing damage or limiting hazard, like responding to hazards? I don't know. What were you thinking here, Tamsin? Like bittersweet or something that makes it difficult to access?
I don't remember the origin of this question, but I'm thinking about, access roads to water supply, firefighting water supply, or if in any particular invasive along a road is taking down a lot of trees or examples
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, the bittersweet is causing a lot of damage. And the knotweed is really bad. In some areas, we've done a few controlled applications approved by the Concom, but it keeps coming back. The knotweed keeps coming back, but it's more controlled than in some towns.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure how that would, it's causing damage to the roadways, but I'm not sure how to apply this question.
Yeah. But it's interesting to think about. I mean, if you had an area with a lot of bittersweet that was pulling trees down, I mean, it does take a while for them to come down, but if you're kind of looking into the future and thinking about that, and if there are power lines or if it's an evacuation route. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. I noticed in your MVP plan that there was a recommendation about doing, kind of a comprehensive assessment of invasives and doing some targeted, identifying priority areas and doing some target treatment. So that's good. Are there residences on Route 202 in Shutesbury? This is referring back to the section of the plan about like transportation accidents, trucks that would be carrying hazardous materials on Route 202.
There are no residents on 202 in Shutesbury.
Okay. And the next
It's
question.
basically surrounded by DCR watershed property.
Okay. And the next question is kind of related, again, talking about chemicals. Are there any known chemical storage in the floodplains that you're worried about? Also, with other communities that we've worked with, Leverett and Whately, for example, the farming community, depending on what they're doing and their size, they may have propane tanks or other hazardous, potentially hazardous chemicals that they use in their farming operations.
I don't think so. I mean, we did have the gasoline spill at the fire station, but that has been resolved.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have any chemical storage places that I know of. I mean, the closest chemical storage we have, the only one that files a tier 2 report, is the substation on Pratt Corner Road, the national substation. And that's basically just, when they have spare transformers or the transformer at the substation, and there's a fiber optics boosting building at the same place that has batteries, so there's lead acid in the batteries. That's the only place that is required to file tier 2 reports.
Okay.
What about the battery storage units at the Wheelock Solar?
I guess yes and no. There's no worry about runoff unless there is an actual fire, and then you're worried about the water runoff from trying to cool the batteries.
Mm. And what is this facility? It's a storage facility?
It's a photovoltaic power generation place with lithium ion battery storage.
Oh. And is it a business?
Yes.
Yes, it's a 6 megawatt power plant, solar power plant.
Tamsin, are you aware of that?
No.
So we'll have to make sure when we look at the maps that we place it on the map
Okay.
as critical infrastructure.
And it's off route, it's off Pratt Corner Road.
Okay. And who owns it?
It's currently owned by, I believe it's Nextera, which is part of Florida Power and Light. But the land is leased from Coles.
Oh, okay. And it's Next Zero?
Nextera, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
Xterra.
next, oh, could you spell it? I'm sorry.
Just a moment.
Is it NEXTERA?
I think so, yeah.
And, oh, okay. NEXTERs, thank you.
And
Sorry.
the transformer substation on Pratt Corner Road, that's a utility company.
National Grid.
And it sounded like there wasn't any concern about that being vulnerable to flooding. Is that correct?
Not flooding, no, I don't think so. Neither one is really. The solar farm is 130 Pratt Corner Road. You need an address.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So for section 4, which you haven't seen yet, we're still working on it. There were a couple of questions. So the sub-plan, is that still in flux, Walter, where the state like came up with a new template and then kind of just left everybody hanging and?
Now, what was this? Sorry, I was.
Oh, the
What plan?
comprehensive emergency management plan, like the SEMP plan
Yep.
that was electronic, isn't there like some glitch where the towns haven't been able to like update their plans?
Well, MEMA is working with all the towns individually right now in rewriting that whole plan. We did ours a few weeks ago, and it is on the agenda for the next select board meeting to be approved and signed by the select board.
Oh, great. So we could just say that basically what you said.
Yeah, it's been completely rewritten. And I don't know, I'll have it right in front of me, the date that we redid it, but just a couple weeks ago, and it is now going to go in front of the select board to be approved.
So is there anything that we should include in the hazard mitigation plan from the updated SEM plan?
I would have to look and reference that for like the whole spreadsheet with the cultural, significant buildings and all that other stuff. That's a whole, long spreadsheet with all that information in it. I would have to take what's in here and quickly look at that and see.
Right.
If it is approved in the next month, is there somebody we could request it from?
Yeah, you could request it from me.
Okay.
So we don't have to go through
Directly,
MEMA and have the town write a letter and do all that, which is what we had to do the last time around.
I mean, either one, it's our plan.
Okay. Yeah, because it's probably easier for us, Walter, if you can just give us the spreadsheet and give us, the text, and then we can do the cross-checking.
Okay, sure. I have all that right now, so.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if some of the questions that are to follow could be answered by the new I don't know how you say the acronym, Kimberly.
So,
SEM.
yeah.
Do you still want to go ahead with them just in case they aren't?
Let's see. I mean, we can just go through them quickly. I assume that the town has mutual aid agreements with surrounding towns.
Police agreements are in place with a number of towns.
Did we not sign a municipal mutual aid agreement a few years ago for highway departments and all that?
For highway departments?
Yep, there was a plan that was put through by the state, by MEMA, with it was a what they call the municipal mutual aid agreement. And I believe the town voted to sign that.
Yeah.
I think that's all the information we need. If that's
And
true.
the fire department has, we've been longstanding members of the Tri-State Fire Mutual Aid Agreement.
And the police are part of the, I think, Western Mass, or at least, I think it's a Western Mass mutual aid agreement.
And I think the answer to number 3 is yes. The town participates
Yes.
in the REPC.
Yes.
And then the next statement about, people who have lived in Shutesbury for a long time are accustomed to weathering storms, sheltering in place, and helping out neighbors.
Yeah,
I would say it's a fairly true statement. Yep.
So
I'm sorry, do we need to add, because there's a number of, we've had an influx of people in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure
The-
that aren't so accustomed, so I don't know if that should be noted.
Well, yeah, it should be. That statement is true, but there's less and less people that have lived in Shutesbury for a long time. So
mhm,
that's a ongoing changing thing.
right.
I mean, we have people in town that move into town and then they write or call town hall to say that they have low water pressure. And if the water department can turn the pressure up, they don't even realize that they run on a well and they have their own septic system. They are definitely not going to be accustomed to weathering a storm.
would this be a place to note the village neighbors as a,
Yes. Yeah.
that I should join?
Oh my goodness.
So Shutesbury, that's a great program. So Shutesbury is participating in the
Yes.
Village Neighbors Program. That's great.
It started in Shutesbury.
It was David Dan, one of our past town administrator, select board member. Just a really nice man.
Shutesbury
Nice.
invented Village Neighbors, you're saying?
Well, the regional ones started here and went regional from here,
Nice.
town by town.
Yep.
Is there something about it on the town website that we could maybe,
That's a nice-
The village neighbors?
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
It might be something under the Council on Aging.
okay, we can check that.
Yeah.
So the plan talks about, your MVP plan talks about strengths, and we, in the MVP plans that the COG did, we use this graphic, which we don't have to use. I mean, I think it's fine. I was looking at your plan today. I think it's fine, Tamsin, just to include the entire list.
Okay.
Because it's not like, they didn't prioritize them, which is fine.
Okay.
And number 6, the emergency management team. We just wanted to make sure we understood. I'm sure the list of what you guys do is quite long. And we just wanted to make sure we understood everything.
I think there's a lot of planning that the emergency management team does.
Mhm.
So they, Mark has done, the fire department has done events about, about emergencies or loss of water or, all kinds of things that to help people be able to respond in emergencies.
Those are trainings for residents.
Public training.
That's great.
Public.
Yeah.
Basically, the emergency management team works as the emergency management department would, except we bring in not only the emergency management personnel, police, fire, highway, school, select board, board of health. We have a ham radio operator. There's a few other people involved in it. And we were until COVID meeting once a month. And we would, and it is basically, it's planning and planning and getting equipment and training for response and recovery from any kind of emergency situation. So we dealt with basically everything. It was really started a little bit after we had, a big storm, and there was a lot of stuff going on with down at the lake with water and all that. But then it really came into fruition after the ice storm.
Mm,
The
mhm.
ice storm, where it really proved that it worked well. We work under the incident command system. After the storm, we did an after action report, found out all our weaknesses. Spent time addressing those, whether it was training or buying equipment or, doing other preparation. So it's an ongoing, pretty much kind of like what the REPC does in a lot of ways, but specifically for Shutesbury and looking at the problems we have specific to our town, whether it's, getting grants to buy equipment, to prepare for things, to either respond or afterwards to recover from. It's, we've done, as Becky says, we've done trainings called Are You Ready, for people to be better prepared for when there is a storm and they lose power and all that. Different things like that.
So do you feel like, what you're doing is kind of, I don't know how to say this without making it sound like it's a bad, like I'm saying something bad about other Franklin County towns, but it sounds like what you're doing is like quite a bit more sophisticated maybe than a lot of neighboring towns.
I think Linda Dunleavy said so.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to think of a nice way to say it because
We've
I
had-
love
we've
all
had-
my towns.
This started like what, 30 years ago, Walter? No, maybe.
It wasn't that long ago, but it started back, I think David Dan was the town administrator back then.
Mhm.
The issue with the dam and the water almost overtopping the dam at Lake Wyola. Everybody realized that we have no idea what we do in case that happened. And that's when we started actually getting organized. And instead of just having one person that was an emergency management director because the state said you had to have one, there was no description, there was no authority to it or anything. And we realized that we had to work together. And basically we've had the luxury of having all the departments pretty much come together and work together in unison to better support and protect ourselves, across the board.
Right.
Yeah, granted, we don't get a whole lot of input sometimes from the school, highway sometimes. But they help out, they work right along as a team. They don't, necessarily come to so many of the meetings or not, but we've set up plans, even EOC, how do we set up an EOC? What, trigger points as to what we open when at this different points. We've looked at shelters, we've looked at all this stuff, and it's all because everybody kind of came together and worked together to do this. It's all this stuff you hope you never have to use, but it's better to have it on the shelf and have to dust it off every once in a while and update it than sit there and have the situation go, what do we do?
Right. Yeah, you're happy to have it when you need it, definitely. Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you. That was a wonderful description.
So the next question we had are the town's records all digitized?
No.
Okay. And do you have a backup system?
Yes. Well, but it's not I'm talking about at least town hall and the library, and I think most, and fire and highway have, not highway, but all have like backup hard drives, but they're not backed up to the cloud. We're trying to get back to getting them backed up to the cloud. When we tried the first time, our internet wasn't good enough to work with the system, the carbon system, but we got hit with COVID right after we got our internet up in January of 2020. So we should be, our goal is to get it backed up on the cloud using the Carbonite system if there isn't a cheaper alternative.
Okay.
And we do have, although they haven't been brought out to everyone, unfortunately, that's my doing. We did get through the emergency management team and all that. A bunch of 2 terabyte hard drives, backup drives for all the different departments that.
Oh, that would be great to have, Walter.
Yeah, I have them. I got them all labeled and all that. I just haven't distributed them. That's, my fault on that. But yeah, so that's, there you go, 2 terabytes worth of information right there. That's, backup. We have them for all or most all of the actually at least critical departments.
Great.
Can I just go back to 7 and ask if there's any records that you are concerned about not being digitized?
Yes.
I know the record storage committee evaluated different ways to go about getting records digitized, but they have not moved forward on that project, but it was explored.
Well, and I think they came before the select board in December of 19. And I remember noting that there were plans to have a larger meeting, sort of a brainstorming with the community in the spring of 2020. And
nope, COVID
didn't happen. But that is a very large concern.
I will, Becky, I don't know, you might have heard about this already, but my understanding is that Irving got an MVP grant to digitize their town records.
Great.
So it might just, if the town, once the town, has more conversations and they're ready to move forward with that, contacting Brian Smith, to see how they did that, because that would be a nice project.
So don't certain things have to be preserved in the original state, like the really old documents?
This is like outside of my area of
Yeah.
expertise, but you're probably right. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it would, it sounds like the town is really interested in pursuing this. So I just wanted to mention that the MVP grant program, could be a possible source of funding.
Oh, that would be great. The safe, they did some upgrades to the safe. We put a mini split in, where the town records are kept in the old town hall. And there's a new mini split in there to keep the temperature steady and help, help preserve them through there. And we monitor, they went through the record store, did studies and measured, humidity levels in the building there and in the basement of town hall, and made a number of recommendations, but like you said, it hasn't rolled out into viable projects yet, and that needs to happen next.
Number 9, we were wondering if there were if there were conservation groups working in Shutesbury, in addition to what the Conservation Commission is doing, local land trusts, the Open Space Committee, if there were just any other, there's the Rattlesnake Gutter Trust in Leverett. Wendell has one. I think it's Bear Mountain maybe, but they're actually closing shop soon. So we were just wondering if there were just any other local conservation groups like that.
No, not that I know of. Does anyone?
No.
Okay. The town conducted a townwide culvert evaluation, assessment to kind of inventory everything and prioritize any repairs or replacements.
I think is Walter still here?
Yeah, I had talked to Ryan at FERCog a couple years ago about doing this, and we're on the list of that, but I guess last year or the year before, the grant that they used for that was full, projects were full, and it was on the list to do. I don't know if that was last year or not, but I don't think much happened with that.
Okay.
And all that. So Ryan was aware that we wanted to do that. He was going to do it for us. It was just, scheduling and grant availability.
Right. The fire department, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say regarding culverts, our two culverts with the highest need for repairs. The one on Old Wendell Road between the lake and the ponds above it. That was done 2 years ago. That was rebuilt. And then the Locks Pond culvert dam is going out to bid within about a week or so.
Great.
So our top priorities, which I had applied for MVP money early on or other money, we ended up getting the small municipal bridge program grant for the $500,000 grant for the Locks Pond culvert. So
Great.
our two big worries are under control.
That's great. Yeah, and those are expensive projects.
Mhm.
Well, our
Yeah.
highway department brought the first one in at a remarkable reduction. I mean, for under $30,000 when our first estimate 15 years ago was over 200,000. So
Oh my
it did it.
gosh. Wow.
Yeah, that's
So the next question, number 11, the Shutesbury Fire Department, I'm sure they do fire, safety education programs, and we just wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And then there was a question about whether or not you might work with the Amherst Fire Department's SAFE program, or maybe that's something
We have been working with the Amherst Fire Department SAFE program for many, many years. I can't remember exactly how many now. Probably at least 12 or 15. Unfortunately, this year, we've done it as a multi-town. Amherst, Pelham, Leverett, and Shutesbury did it as a joint grant and operations, mostly run by the Amherst Fire Department. But because of lack of interest or participation or burnout factor, they greatly reduced what they were doing this year to basically just Amherst schools, and I think they're doing Pelham also. Leverett had enough personnel that are available during the day that wanted to get involved. They're doing their own program. We don't have the personnel to do it here to the point it needs to be done. So this is the first year that we are actually not doing the SAFE program. And it'll stand from going forward.
Is it accurate to just say that your program is in transition?
You could say that. Like I said, this is the first year that we have not done it. We have done some other fire safety educational programs for the community, not part of that grant. We've done a couple fire extinguisher classes, which we talk a whole bunch about fire science and what is fire and how does it burn and different classifications and all that before we even go into the fire extinguisher part. But then we do hands-on live fire extinguisher training with them. Those have been fairly successful, but that's really about all we've been able to do.
So yeah, you're still doing fire safety education programs. It's just that this year you didn't.
This year we're not doing the SAFE program. Yeah.
Right. The next question is, what happens if the elementary school can't be used as a shelter?
Well, if it's bad enough that we have that many people that we need to, and it can't, we would revert to the county regional sheltering plan if that was so activated.
Okay. And then do you have a
Uh,
trained,
Sorry, we haven't ever used it as a shelter to date, right?
No.
Walter?
No.
Hmm.
But the way we have our shelter set up is initially, it would start more as a warming center, cooling center, or whatever possible shelter at the town hall, the basement of the town hall. But if we were to hit 10 people, then that's the trigger to open up, go down to start using the school.
Okay.
Historically, we've never had more than a couple people at a time for basically a warming or cooling shelter. I don't think we've ever had anybody stay overnight in a shelter, even in the ice storm. Or did we have one family?
Yeah, we had when Al and Ralph both, I think we had about 3 or 4 people that they actually used the cots
Okay,
during the ice storm in 2008.
that's
Hmm.
right. Yes, we did for 1 or 2 nights, but that was it.
That was it.
If you ever reach that point, then hopefully we would be able to utilize the Franklin County Regional Sheltering Program.
Yeah. The next question is, does Shutesbury have a trained shelter team?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, we have people that would volunteer to help, but is it a trained, shelter team that's up to probably the standards that would be looked at for MEMA or FEMA? No, we don't.
Okay. I just wanted to bring the maps up for people to look at. And I know this is hard to do on a screen. But Tamsin, can you take notes? I mean, I think what we'd like to do is just try to locate like the beaver ponds and, some of the things that were mentioned so far in the meeting. So we can either do it this way, or if someone has the time to mark up a map, I can come pick it up. Which do you think would be easier?
Walter,
It might be easy. It might be easier to actually physically mark up a map and then have you
Okay.
pick it up. I think that's what we did last time. We were looking at some of these maps for the hazard mitigation plan the first time we went around and did it.
Sure. So should we print out the larger copies for you, Walter, and then drop them off, or are you able to print them out?
I can only print out 8.5 by 11.
Okay. Yeah. No.
We need our print copies.
Yeah.
So how about this? Can we coordinate directly with you, Walter, about dropping off some maps?
Sure.
Okay, great. And we'll just summarize some of the, the notes that we took tonight to just jog your memory about what we're hoping to add.
Sure. I can bring them, up to Becky and the select board and highway and all that too, to double check. We'll make the rounds with them, make sure everybody has their say on them.
That would be great. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to do was talk about these draft problem statements. And these are something new in the updated plan template. We didn't have these in the 2015 plan. And so I was kind of struggling with how, to do this, virtually. And I'm almost tempted to basically, instead of going through the painful exercise of kind of looking at all of these, is I can look at them on my screen and then we can go back to where we can see everyone and then we can just have a conversation about these problem statements. The purpose of the problem statements is to kind of create the foundation, if you will, for the action items that are in the action plan of the hazard mitigation plan. So because you've done your MVP plan, you already have identified many projects and action items that are also relevant to the hazard mitigation plan. And there's also text in your MVP plan that can help populate these hazard problem statements. So this is kind of like a little bit of the sausage making part of the plan. And so I think that's what I want to do, is just ask you questions to kind of prompt you. And then, you know, I just think that that will be more productive. And Tamsin, are you able to, let's see, nobody wants to look at my desktop, so I will just stop that. And so how does that sound? Does that sound like
You would like me to take notes?
to do it? Yeah, that would be great. So it's nice to see everybody, but I have to switch back to the screen so I can, so now you see everybody again, right? You don't see my screen?
Mhm.
Okay. So let's think about floods and the flood hazard problem statements. We've talked about the gravel roads already. The other thing we'd like to do, and I think some of this was talked about in your MVP plan, but we want to make sure that we capture any areas of chronic flooding on other, you know, roads as well in town. So when you're looking at the maps that we're going to give you, you know, literally just circle areas or make notes on the maps about other areas of flooding. And this doesn't have to be like catastrophic, you know, the road washes out flooding. It can be like nuisance, you know, flooding, just areas that repeatedly flood from rain events. We've talked about beaver activity already. Are there any concerns about ice jams that might cause flooding or other damage?
I don't think we've had historically any incidents of ice damming on any of the streams that caused any damage. I know a couple years ago, there was some down in Leverett that we responded to and helped them out with, but I don't think we've had anything where we've had any ice damming that's caused any flooding.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else can recall anything, but I can't.
No.
Another concern with flooding is that people who are on private wells, if the wells, you know, if the well casing is compromised or if the drainage around the well, you know, is causing water to go into the well, that, you know, that can create quality, you know, water quality and health problems. Are there any issues like that?
I think our well issues have been more around drought than flooding.
Okay. I did notice in your MVP plan that, yeah, there were some, I can't remember if it was Lake Viola area, but there was some discussion about that, you know, quite a few wells had gone dry. Let's see, culvert and bridge maintenance or problem areas. So you talked about the 2 priority culverts that were replaced, and we talked about the need for an assessment of the culverts. Are there any other problem ones that come to mind, culverts or bridges?
Yeah, that would be more of a Tim's expertise. I know over the last couple of years, there's been a couple smaller, shallower culverts, like,
Mhm.
I think it was not this last winter, the winter before, there was one on January Hills Road that had froze up, and then we had a thaw and it backed up and was flooding the road.
Okay.
He replaced one on Montague Road, about 3/4 of a mile from Leverett Road.
Yeah,
Was
And
that
then-
the one during the emergency? when we went
No.
Down the road?
No, that was not an emergency, actually. The only emergency ones was the one that's about a half a mile up from Leverett Road that collapsed during Irene.
right.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the ones that have been in the past after, and then there was one where I think it's Camel Brook crosses Cooleyville Road. That one had, after replacing it a couple of times, they finally got permission to upsize it. But what is problem ones now? Really, that would be a question for Tim, because he's
okay.
the one that deals with them all the time. And I'm sure there are a couple ones that he'd really like to take care of, but I don't know what they are.
So what would be the best way to get in touch with him, Becky? Just directly or through you?
I would call the 259-1215. He's very responsive to phone calls. He'll try to make them during lunchtime, probably. Most usually, I would just call him.
Okay, great.
You can email. He might respond in a couple of days,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
So-
just highway@shutesbury.org.
Okay. We have 2 high hazard potential dams, Atkins Reservoir Dam and the Lake Wyola Dam.
Mhm.
Are there any other dams besides the Beaver dams that you're particularly concerned about?
The only other one that I would be really concerned about right now and is a privately owned dam is the one at Ames Pond.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's actually 2 dams, aren't there, Walter?
Yes, there's an upper one and a lower one at Ames Pond, yep.
Mm.
Is that
They both have been rated by the state as poor condition, I believe.
are those now owned by Kestrel Land Trust?
I'm not sure. I know there was a whole bunch of stuff going back and forth, and I was trying to figure that out the other day of who owns what. But
That would be wonderful.
I don't know if at one point it was separated where the dam went with the house, but then I don't know if that's how it was left. I really don't know, because the house has been sold
Mhm.
and that property's been sold, but then a lot of it went to Kestrel Land Trust of the backland. But I don't know who actually owns the dam itself at this point. And there are 2 dams. There's one right on the pond and one lower.
Do you find?
I could probably find out by calling the Office of Dam Safety and see if they know.
Okay, that would be great, Walter.
I also
Thank
have
you.
a couple ins with Kestrel to at least eliminate that option.
Sure, okay, that'd be good.
So, do you find that emergency communications, during an event are adequate? Like, are you concerned about spotty, cell phone coverage or internet, or reaching certain populations, certain vulnerable populations during an emergency?
I'm sorry, could you say the beginning of that again? I apologize.
Sure. So I'm wondering if the communication network during an emergency, like when you need to get the word out to residents, if you feel that that is adequate, or are there some challenges with cell phone coverage or internet coverage, or maybe just certain populations, maybe elderly people, don't have a cell phone, or they don't go on the computer. So, are there challenges with getting information out during an event?
Yes.
Yeah. And what percentage of people are we able to reach of the number of households?
Are you talking with the internet or which?
With the code red, is that what we're?
So
It, You know,
That is a question mark. Yeah, we have a new telephone system that's supposed to reach all the households in town. But it's, the service area that it usually hits is sometimes like 30%. It has not been functioning as well as our last one.
Yeah.
But we now do have 89%. I think 89% of the community is signed up with our new internet service. So as long as there's electricity, which isn't typical in an event, that would work. Cell phone service is very spotty, but there's potential for a new cell tower. It's been permitted on Wendell Road, not far from Town Hall. And it's possible that that might be constructed in the next year or two.
Right.
So if that happens, that would be a help for cell phone service but it's all dependent on electricity.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay, let's see. So anything else about flooding?
We live on top of a hill.
It's everyone else's
That's right.
problem, right?
Yes, it's Leverett and Amherst,
Right.
their problem.
All right, well, let's go on. Let's move on to severe winter storms. And let me just look at my list here. So are there areas that, have repetitive power outages? And I mean, I'm sure National Grid, keeps track of that, but is there anything that, if there are those areas, is it something that the town feels like they can do anything about it, or like, I mean, is it trees,
I would say
falling on lines?
honestly, in my opinion, National Grid has done a good job at maintaining the lines and clearance of what they can. They did a great project for protecting lines anyways on Pratt Corner Road from the substation all the way up to the main road and a little bit in each direction. But feasibly, as long as you have overhead lines, unless you clear every tree within the height of the tree, the fall distance, the fall zone of all the trees, which means you're cutting back from the lines 60 to 80 feet, you always have the potential for trees coming down on the lines. They have done, what I consider a good job, considering when we listen to the radio, when we have a storm and wind event and storm event, the amount of calls that other towns are getting for trees and wires down, to us, it's usually pretty ours are a lot less in volume of calls. When we get a direct hit from like a inline wind or microburst or something like that, we have a lot. But there's no way to actually prevent that,
Right.
without clear cutting a path, 60, 80 feet wide, which we're always going to do.
Does the highway department have a tree pruning or cutting program, or is it something that they do? Yeah.
They do, working with the tree warden, I believe they occasionally identify, trees that are not healthy, that are going to be a hazard.
Mm-hmm.
They do, I don't know how many a year, but they do work with contractors sometimes to remove some of those hazard trees.
So we could, when we follow up with
Tim.
Tom?
Tim.
Tim, thank you. I could have never been a politician because I'm like terrible. We can talk to him about that.
They do clearing of brush, on roadsides to keep trees from growing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else about severe winter storms?
They're getting worse.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're coming at weird times too. Like late in the season, early in the season.
Yeah, we had 10 inches of snow a week or so ago.
So the next hazard, hurricanes and tropical storms. And, you know, again, so those impacts would be strong winds, flooding. So you'd have power outages, you know. The other thing about the way the hazard mitigation plan is structured is that there are a lot of overlaps between the problem statements because many of the hazards have similar impacts. So I'm just trying to look through the list and see if there's anything that we haven't already talked about.
I think the biggest difference in our concern as a town for our residents, or my concern, you know, when we look at the emergency management team, and what we talk about is in the wintertime, when you lose power, it can be a lot more devastating to people than summertime losing power.
Yeah.
If it's 15 degrees below zero out and your power's out, your heat won't run. Not only is that a hazard for staying warm, but then pipes start freezing. There's not that much more damage. If you lose power in the summertime, it's bad enough, but the worst that could be is you lose a refrigerator or a freezer full of food.
Right.
You're not causing more damage to the house, unless in fact then it's in conjunction with a heavy rainstorm and your basement's flooding and your sump pump doesn't work at that point.
Right. That's a good point. So the next hazard is severe thunderstorm and wind hazard problem statements. Generally, those kind of center around trees, and utility lines. Is there, let's see. So West Cemetery, removing trees from West Cemetery on Leverett Road was mentioned.
That's been completed.
Okay.
Well, the main ones that we were looking at doing at that time was completed through a CPA grant.
Through a what grant?
CPA, isn't that?
Oh, CPA. Oh, right, because it's historic. Okay. Okay. And let's see. Oh, debris management. So has the state contacted Shutesbury and requested that you find your own, like within your borders, debris management site?
I have not.
Been a lot of talk about this, even in the county, looking at debris management plans. And really, if it's tree debris, that's one thing we can manage easy enough.
Right.
When you're talking, if a tornado comes through and wipes out 50 houses and all the household chemicals and hazards that come along with all that stuff, what they require for a debris management plan or debris staging area, there's no place in town that meets that.
Right.
I mean, they want an asphalted area large enough that you can bring the stuff in, put in dumpsters, separate the debris and all that stuff. And there's no way we can do that in Shutesbury, not to that standard.
Well, and I would imagine that because of the pandemic, maybe the REPC's discussion about this has gotten kind of put on the back burner.
Yeah, they haven't discussed the debris management plan that much lately that I know of.
Okay. All right. Well, anything come to mind about severe thunderstorms or wind hazards?
I think they play the same as winter storms and hurricanes and tornadoes. It's tree damage, power lines down, damage to houses, road damage from high water flow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about the condition of the roofs of town buildings.
Oh.
They're not good.
Mm-mm.
We do have a new roof on the town hall. It's 2 years old. But our school roof we've applied 3 times from MSBA loan for the school roof and did not receive it. We currently are working on going out to bid to re-roof the gym portion of the school roof. The library's building has been, maintained.
Mhm.
And about 8 years ago was, we replaced all the broken tiles
Slate.
there, the slate tiles.
Yeah.
The old town hall hasn't been touched in about 15 years. And Walter, how is your building?
Well, I'm trying to think of the last time we put a roof on it. It was quite a while ago. It has, we've only had one incident in the last year of any leakage, and it was not so much the roof, but where the base of the antenna attached, a lot of the waterproofing had dried up and cracked. So I just went up there actually with a caulking tube of it's called wet patch, and put that on, and we haven't had any problems since. So the main part of the roof is, relatively okay. It's been withstanding all our storms and all that. We haven't had any leakage other than that one thing last year. So we're at one point that there was getting to be some pretty severe damage to the ceiling in the apparatus bay, where a lot of the sheetrock started, sagging and all that.
Sounds great.
The highway department roofs were redone. Well, the main building was redone in 2009. Currently the salt shed is not in good shape, but they've come in and made repairs on a number of panels. About 6 panels had to be replaced and fastened down that had broken loose.
So wildfire is the next hazard, and we've gotten some good information about the concerns there about access and kind of this interesting conundrum about, leaving the slash, for the health of the forest versus, does that create problems for access? I did notice in your MVP plan that there was a project to conduct a vulnerability and risk assessment of the surface water supplies used for firefighting. So, and there was information about, potentially the source ponds, should be inspected and any physical problems noted. And are there any other, and we talked about the fire safety education, are there any other problems or vulnerabilities or concerns related to wildfires?
Only as I think when we stated when we're talking about the MVP is that, the risk of fire danger goes up when we're in drought conditions.
Mm-hmm.
When we're in drought conditions, that means the one thing that we use for firefighting is in shorter supply.
Right.
So that's the catch-22 about that. We have been, upgrading a lot of our equipment when it comes to wildfire fighting. We have last few years we picked up a our military surplus vehicle that is a bit more of an all-terrain vehicle. We've outfitted as more of a brush tanker, but it can work as a brush truck. It has proved to be able to go in a lot of places that other vehicles haven't been able to go.
Mm-hmm.
And in the fact that last year we upgraded our rescue truck with putting a new chassis under it. We took the old chassis and put it a flatbed and toolboxes and actually created a newer brush truck, which has worked very well for us this year. So we've been upgrading the equipment and hoses and stuff like that, more through the VFA grant. to do that in our regular budgets, but that, we've been, in that sense, we've been, trying to just build up our equipment and ability to fight wildfire. As for, the higher hazard, that just comes with weather, lack of rain, drought conditions.
Yeah, I've been surprised by how many alerts I've had on my weather.com app. Like in the past couple of months, it's, because of winds and
It's
lack of rain.
Been high fire danger days. We've been in class 4 days quite a bit lately, which, the good thing about that is they don't give out permits for that during those days, but that doesn't stop the other things. There's been some fires that have started with the high winds where electric line comes down, arcs, and now starts a fire.
Right.
So yeah, there's been a number of those happening around the county. It's scary to think this early in the spring that we're already worrying about drought conditions.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking when I kept, every time I opened my, to see what the weather was going to be for the day, it was like, fire, warning. The next hazard is earthquakes, which, you can't do a whole lot about. I mean, the town is vulnerable, like many, towns in Franklin County and across New England, because many of the homes, 44% of them were built before the state building code, started requiring or included earthquake prevention, standards for buildings. So, I don't know. I mean, if there were to be an earthquake, there might be a problem with dealing with the debris like we talked about, but I would imagine that there'd be some emergency activation of some appropriate site somewhere, nearby that could be used by the town. The next one is dam failure, and we've talked about the beaver, we've talked about the dams. And you can decide if, when you see the maps, Walter, and other folks who might look at them, if you want to put the inundation areas on there from the emergency action plans for the high hazard dams. I mean, if it's all going to Leverett, Leverett has it on their maps, but if
Right.
The Ames Pond Dam, is that going out of town too if it were to fail?
That's going basically right into Lake Wyola.
Okay.
And then to like,
More concerned about recently is McAvoy Pond Dam in Wendell,
Mhm.
where they did do inundation maps. If that were to fail, because they were having some problems with that. Some of them have been addressed, but not fully. That one would actually activate our emergency action plan for Lake Wyola Dam, simply because of the sheer volume of water coming through at the rate it would be coming in.
So is there, should we take a look? Is there anything that you want us to take a look at to, that would have information that we could include in the hazard mitigation plan about the McAvoy Pond Dam and the impacts on Shutesbury?
We could, I can get you the, I'm sure I could get you the inundation maps for that.
Okay.
I can add it to it, and it's affecting a relatively small part of the population and roadways around the lake, but it would affect the entire lake by bringing up the level of the lake. Depending on how quickly it failed, it could bring the lake up, a good foot or more pretty quickly. That in effect would activate our EAP for the dam and, require notification downstream to Leverett and Montague.
Right. Okay. landslide is the next hazard, and Tamsin took a look at the slope stability map, and there are areas, you know, in the Quabbin, the west sides of Poverty Mountain and January Hills are vulnerable to landslides. And then there's steep sandy banks along dirt roads. We kind of talked about this a little bit, that may be susceptible to landslides along Montague Road, Sand Hill Road, and the dirt sections of Wendell Road.
Yep.
Did we miss anything in that list?
I'm not sure if there's any locations on Cooleyville that would be a problem or not.
Bet there are.
Yeah,
So Tamsin, we're gonna add Cooleyville Road under the landslide problem statements. And then we have extreme temperature hazard problem statements. So that's extreme cold or extreme heat. And we've already talked a bit about that. And how extreme heat might worsen the risk of wildfires and availability of water for firefighting. Let's see. And we can talk about kind of these weird freeze-thaw cycles and the impacts on the town roads, Tamsin, when we talked to the highway super.
Yeah.
We'll ask Tim about that.
Yeah, because there might be certain roads in town that have been particularly hard hit or problematic.
Montague Road, yes.
Montague Road.
Montague Road,
Okay.
Baker Road, I think. I think all
Baker
of them.
Road.
And Sand Hill Road was closed just as a road for a period of time. People were getting stuck.
Yeah.
Mm.
So Baker Road, Sand Hill Road, and Montague Road. And then the last hazard, second to last hazard is invasive species. So is there someone in town that would be good to talk to about some of the specific impacts, like of the hemlock woolly adelgid, the emerald ash borer, you know, just the whole list of invasives that we have now, Becky?
I would talk to Penny Jakes.
Oh, great. Yeah.
She's
Okay.
She came forward with a group a few years back and helped us focus in on the knotweed, but she, you know, she's aware of all those issues, and with all her work on COMCOM, she's traveled far and wide in town on foot. So.
Oh, okay, great. Well, and we're working with her on the open space plan, so that's perfect. And the MVP, one of the recommendations that came out of your MVP process was to develop a comprehensive, you know, invasive species management plan and do some, think about some additional mosquito and pest control options. The town is still part of the Pioneer Valley Mosquito Control District. I checked your website and it, yeah, okay.
We just joined last year.
And then the last, oh my God, I keep saying it's the last one, but it keeps going on. Vector-borne diseases. So this was a section that we added. It was the town of Deerfield actually requested this. And so we developed it. And then, you know, when other towns have been interested in it, we've included it in their plan. It's, you know, at least right now, probably nothing that FEMA is going to fund, but certainly it could be an MVP project potentially, you know, any action items related to this. So, you know, again, because of the, you know, all the crossover between the MVP and the hazard mitigation plans, I mean, I would recommend having this section in your plan. It's also just good reference. So unless, you know, you felt strongly that it wasn't appropriate to have it in there.
And what was this part again?
It's vector-borne diseases. So we basically talk about mosquitoes and ticks.
Okay.
And the reason why this is, kind of more of an issue is because of climate change, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
And, climate change is woven through the hazard mitigation plan. And also, I mean, that's the whole reason for doing the MVP planning process. And then the last, it really is the last one, human-made hazard. So cyber attacks are something that many of our towns, feel is a growing threat and concerned about. And we talked about Shutesbury, your backup system for your digital files right now, or your hard drives, and you're looking into a cloud-based system. Has there been like training for town staff, people who, use computers about, just being cautious about unknown emails or opening attachments?
Yes, we've had, we were attacked, I think 7 years ago. We
How
had
many?
We
7 or 8.
yeah.
The accountant's computer got hacked, and we lost a lot of information. So there's been ongoing conversations about the issue and reminders, and everyone's on backup schedules, and so
That's great. Yeah.
we're very conscious of it and active about it.
And Walter, so on 202, if there were to be a spill of hazardous materials, a transportation accident, it's good that there aren't any homes, people living along there. Are there do you have other concerns about that? I know there's a whole procedure if something happens.
The largest concern out there is the water quality for, everything feeds into the Quabbin.
Right.
I know a number of years ago, I don't know how many, we worked with DCR. It might have even still been called MDC at that point. And they got a grant where they got all the towns that surrounded the Quabbin into the watershed, a lot of equipment to handle initial spills up to 1,000-gallon spills.
Wow.
Have that, so that in a trailer that we bought. And when we have used things, we replaced it. But we do work fairly closely when something like that happens with notifying if we have anything over, the DEP regulated 5 gallons or 10 gallons. Even if it's not over that, if we have any type of spill that's more significant than just, a half gallon of antifreeze that we were able to contain, we immediately notify DCR either via radio or telephone to let them know that this happened, whether they want to send somebody out or not. And if it's anything major, then, they send teams out. We've done terrestrial booming and water booming training with them. We have access to there's a house down off of gate 16 that has several hundred feet of boom material in it and a boat that we've trained with them to, put the boom right across 202, right across the Quabbin Reservoir where the Swift River feeds into it. And we've done all kinds of terrestrial booming and all that training with them. So yeah, the biggest concern with anything on 202 is, initially water quality issues for Quabbin. Yes, it's, it's a large chemical. Well, then it's, it is still, luckily we don't have to have any worry about any houses being right there. It's whether they're within the 1 mile or 2 mile downwind of whatever it is.
And are there any other roads that are traveled by
Yes.
trucks that would be carrying hazardous
Yes.
that you?
Most every road in town, if you look at oil trucks and propane trucks and all that, but tractor trailer trucks, there's a pretty significant, well, I wouldn't say significant, but there is an increased volume of tractor trailer truck through the Leverett Road, Cooleyville, Prescott Road corridor. It's not uncommon to see at least 2 or 3 tractor trailer trucks go right by the fire station through the center of town every day.
Is it a shortcut or why are they?
With the advent of GPS, it is a shortcut. We've seen tour buses go through here. Any
Mhm.
major event that's going on in Amherst, Northampton and all that, most people come up here and they're following their GPS. If they're going to the eastern part of the state and they're taking Route 2, the 2 major routes are through Pelham or through Shutesbury, and for whatever reason, they send a lot of them. If you just punch it into your GPS, it'll bring you through Shutesbury, through Leverett, Shutesbury, right through the center of town to 202, north to Route 2.
I can't imagine driving a tractor trailer on that route that you just described.
Mm-mm.
It happens more often than, like I said, it's not uncommon to see them go by every day, sometimes 2, 3 a day.
Mhm.
3 tour buses go through all at once. You want to see a big influx of traffic? I mean, have a big event at Mullins Center, and when it gets out, anybody that's heading to the east, they come through here. We've had instances where we had a couple trees come down on a power line, and we had to go down to Leverett to block the road off down there because we had so much traffic coming up, and it was nonstop traffic. I turned around and sent through detours probably 300 or 400 cars in the 2 hours that we were there. I mean, that's not normal, but that does happen. So,
Wow. All right. I'm glad you asked that question, Tamsin. Yeah.
so I don't know what they're carrying, but you know, sometimes some
Right.
of the most dangerous cargoes are UPS and you know, stuff like that.
Tamsin, did you have any other questions?
Did actually, did you go through drought when I was away?
I did not, and I somehow missed that. So thank you for catching that. I have my crib sheet. So do you have it in front of you? I mean, if we've already kind of talked about things that are relevant. We talked about private wells. We talked about the impact on firefighting ability potentially. Farmers, are there any?
Yes, there's at least a handful.
I think I'm curious what you would all say about what planning you have in process or what your general concerns are, given that I think you're seeing an increasing number of wells running dry, and whether the Water Resources Committee is still active and what they're working on, and any planning that you're doing regarding drought.
I don't think they're still meeting regularly, but I believe that the 5 monitoring wells that were put in along the ridge of the town are still being monitored. So that's looking at water quantity at about, I think, 5 to 10 feet down, relatively shallow. And then they've got deep wells down to the bedrock water supply. So but I have not seen the data from that. We have not seen the data.
Would that be something that would be worth maybe reviving?
Well, I just wanted to say, April, that I think the data is available.
Okay.
It comes in a report. I think that they used to send it out regularly, but I haven't kept track of it recently. The committee has not been active for the last 2 or 3 years, but the monitoring program has continued.
I wasn't aware that's good. I mean, that was really an important part of that study.
Have you discussed at all mapping any of your well issues?
Well, I think it was during the summer a couple years ago, and we were aware of it because of so many people. I know at least 20 people got new wells because some people still have shallow wells in town, and it was the shallow wells that seemed to be the hardest hit.
Would you guess that was the 2016 drought?
Yep.
I think what she was asking, did we map that? Did we know?
No, didn't matter.
Do you have any interest
Well,
in?
but the Board
Yeah.
of Health would have all the information of the new wells that went in that year, so mapping could be done.
Did you have any other questions, Tamsin? Great. Well, thank you all. So can we schedule our next meeting, Becky?
Sounds
I had
good.
a follow-up
Oh.
question. Yeah, we went through cyber attack and I was thinking about that afterwards, whether we have everything addressed there. You hear so much about that being an issue in cities and towns, and municipalities. Maybe Becky, you know best. Do you think we have all the protection in place that we need, or is there a need for an audit, or is there?
Well, we've got through our technical support, well, we have software called GData on all the machines to monitor for viruses. And so we respond quickly to any, and they clean out the viruses as they occur. So I'm sure an audit is always good. I know the MLP is trying to figure out how to have an audit of how they're providing services. So, maybe we can talk more about if you know of any good.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I put this in the category, we don't know what we don't know. And this cyber, it's emerging, there's new things coming. And it's not just viruses, there's these different types of hacks and whatever that can really wreak havoc.
Right. And supposedly this GData that was recommended to us has one of the top ratings and the lowest price. And so far they've caught a number of attacks that could have developed.
Yeah.
And we just have to be vigilant. We do have cyber insurance now through Maya, which we didn't have before. So.
Now, what does that do? That if there's a ransom we pay the insurance covers that, or
I don't know to what extent, but it's they help, because what did occur in ours, it was particularly bad because the backup there was no backup at the time that we lost quite a bit of material in the ransom, where just kind of melted everything. All the data disappeared, and the accountant and treasurer had to re-enter a huge amount of work, and the cost of all the hours of inputting the data could have been covered by a grant, but by the insurance. But at this point, at that time, we did not have the insurance. It didn't come out for a couple of years after that.
Yeah.
But it makes us be more cautious.
Yeah, and they're just so sneaky too. I know it seemed like during the pandemic, when we were all working, most of us at the COG were working at home like everyone else. There would be these emails that on the face of them, they looked like they were from Linda Dunleavy. And unless you hovered over the address, you wouldn't even know that it really wasn't from her, and that happened a lot. You just have to be so, hyper vigilant about it. And
our old treasurer was Gabe Bulker, and somebody hacked her email, and Gail Weiss was telling me that a number of people in Pelham and Hadley were getting emails from her asking for donations of Amazon cards. And $400 Amazon cards, not just any Amazon card.
oh gosh.
And so
If you're gonna ask for it, you must ask for a lot, right?
so Gabe was getting all these phone calls from people saying, well, do you really need 400? I could give you 50.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
so everybody was warning other people, if you get an email from Gabe asking for money, don't answer it.
So Tamsin, I was thinking about May 19th for our next meeting. If that, works for you? And I don't know, Becky, what does that look like?
The select board just picked that night for another topic.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got a cemetery commission meeting that night too.
So is there another evening the week of the 17th?
Okay,
We're
Monday,
getting,
Tuesday, Wednesday is booked. 20th is maybe the 20th. That's typically a personnel board meeting, but that's the only available night that week.
Okay, so I'm not available. I have a meeting in Conway at 6. So
You
could
would
we-
want to do it maybe at 5 or how many
sure, yeah,
meeting?
if we could push it back to 5, and then if I had to leave, Tamsin, are you available that evening? Tamsin could wrap it up.
5 p.m. on the 20th.
So we're, May 20th at 5.
Okay. Does that
Okay.
work for you, Melissa, or is it too early?
Nope, I can switch from one thing to another.
awesome.
And does that work for you?
Yeah.
Walter,
Oh, yeah.
Tim? Does it
Yes.
work? for you?
Yep.
And then we could plan to, yeah. No, that sounds good.
Okay.
Will you remind us what we're gonna go over?
Sure. I think at that point we're gonna have Tamsin and I need to, talk about this internally and with our other workload. But what I would like to do is have almost a complete draft of the plan done. And I think that, that can happen. We do need to get the maps to you. So I'll coordinate with you, Becky, to drop them off at town hall, and then Walter and other folks who want to look at them. So anyway, that's the plan, is that the draft is going to be, mostly complete. And what we can do is focus on the action plan, which is going to include, like I said, all of the relevant MVP action items. And so I think we'll try to focus most of our discussion on, is there anything else that, especially, projects that FEMA would fund, right? That we want to include in the plan. And FEMA has a new grant program now, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program. So it's basically their old hazard mitigation grant program, and they've kind of repackaged it and expanded it. And it's just, I've been to a couple of trainings on it, and I think it's going to be maybe a little bit easier for small communities to, be able to access that money. In the past, the benefit cost analysis has been a big hurdle. So anyway, so I think that's what the focus of the next meeting will be, because we have to think about our timeline too, because the grant closes at the end of June. So we want to make sure that we leave ourselves enough time for the, we have to have a public meeting to present the draft plan and a comment period, and then get it off to MEMA for review.
Kimberly, how long is the comment period?
2 weeks.
And how much time before our submission date do we need?
Well, I mean, we need to
respond to the comment period.
Yeah, we just, we need to get the plan in, hopefully, by the middle of June, and then that should satisfy the grant requirements that the town of Shutesbury has to comply with. And then, I'm sure that the comments are going to come back after the grant has closed, Becky, but we've set aside a little bit of DLTA money so that we have some funding for staff to respond to the comments,
Oh, good.
and go back and forth with MEMA and FEMA. Hopefully not very much. They've vetted our template. We've had a lot of plans approved over the last couple of years. So, I don't think it'll be a problem. But yeah, we want to make sure we get the draft plan in so that you can report to Andrew that it's in MEMA's hands.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to talk about now.
Setting the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. So we can do the public meeting as part of a regular, select board meeting. Do you have like cable access? Do people watch these?
No.
No.
But we record our Zoom meetings and make those available to the public. They get posted on our website.
So looking at the June calendar, if we did something the week of the 7th,
Our
or
meeting June 12th.
I didn't hear you.
Our town meeting is on June 12th.
Okay,
So if we could do it after that, just because it's going to be a little crazy, I think.
sure. So why don't we, so we can have the public forum the week of the 14th, but I think if we can at least post the plan the week of the 7th, and then we could just, tell people at town meeting, hey, if you're interested, come to the forum, you can, look at the plan. Then we could have our 2-week comment period kind of bracket, like run from like the 7th to the 21st, because we want to leave ourselves enough time to compile everything and, do all the paperwork we need to do to get it to MEMA.
Okay.
So how does that sound? So the week of the 14th, what would be a good day and time for the forum or public meeting? If you want to
Select
piggyback.
board, I'm just trying to see if the select board might be on the 15th. You said it could be a part of a select board meeting.
Yep.
Just a second, I have to.
Do they typically run over an hour, Kimberly?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, our meetings do.
Oh, I was saying, our part of the meeting will probably be like 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it could be a special select board meeting because the finance committee probably isn't meeting on the 15th. But it's not our normal schedule. Select board, what do you think about going with the 15th just for to review the hazard mitigation?
I think that's fine. I'll be out of town, but I will be Zoom available
Great.
for my last 2 weeks. I think the tradition is as a select board member ends their term, we meet daily.
Yeah, they did one year. Poor
Yes.
Elaine.
Yes.
What's the time of that meeting on the 15th?
5:30?
We can make, let's make it 6 just because I had a complaint that 5:30 is not, is too early. So if we make it 6, let's go for 6 on this one.
Okay. And then let me see what I wrote down. What did I write down for our next meeting?
The 20th. Right?
So our
Yeah,
next meeting,
5:20 at 5.
5:20 at 5. Okay. Thank you. Okie doke.
And so our commitment, Kimberly, is to provide the town with a draft copy by June 8th.
It's like, yeah, the 7th or the 8th. Yeah. I think we should do this. The public comment period should run from the 7th to the 21st. 2 weeks.
Great.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone, very much.
Thank you very much.
Much.
Thank you.
See you all.
Very helpful.
You
Get through
take
that.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
One.
Have a good evening.
Right.